Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to week 88 of the Harborne Islamic Study Circle HISC Seerah sessions as we continue going through the Seerah of the Prophet ﷺ. Alhamdulillah, thanks to Allah for allowing us this ability to read through his Seerah, get closer to him, get an understanding of what's going on. And we're now approaching one of the most critical junctures in the life of the Prophet ﷺ. We talked, I think, previously some of the other critical aspects of his seerah obviously was the hijrah. There was obviously when he received revelation and started doing dawah to people. All of these are pivotal points, and now we're reaching the day of Furqan, the day of criteria, the one of the most important single days which really turned the tide for the Muslims. So that is obviously the battle of Badr, where Haqq and Batil collided under Allah's plan and guidance. But there are a few things that are going on before that. So we talked in the last few weeks about some of the expeditions that the Prophet ﷺ would go out on himself or send his Sahabi. Normally it would be just the Muhajir who he would task with these duties. And last week we specifically talked about the expedition of Abdullah bin Jahsh, who left with specific instructions, and it was a secret mission, and he had to open a letter once he traveled for a couple of days, and then he had to double back, and then they saw a caravan, but it was the end of Rajab, and they were deciding what to do with the caravan because it was lightly guarded, and they decided to attack the caravan and bring back the booty and bring back a couple of prisoners. And Prophet ﷺ wasn't happy with that because they'd killed someone and they'd violated the sanctity of the sacred months. I think Amr bin Hadrami was one who was killed, and we'll talk about his significance a bit later on. And then revelation from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala came to clarify the matter, and this was essentially Allah saying in the Qur'an, in translation, that they ask you concerning fighting in the sacred months, the 7th, the 1st, 7th, 11th and the 12th of the Muslim calendar. Say, O Muhammad, fighting therein is a great transgression or a sin, but a greater transgression or sin with Allah is to prevent mankind from following the way of Allah, is to disbelieve in him, is to prevent access to Masjid al-Haram, and to drive out its inhabitants. And this fitna is worse than the killing. So Allah is putting a context to the situation, and up until that point all the ghazwa, the expeditions that the Prophet ﷺ was in charge of the army, or the Saraya that the Sahabi was sent, none of them had been successful in bringing back any war booty. The Prophet ﷺ would be only targeting the caravans of the Quraish. It wasn't just a general, you go out and you attack everyone. There was a specific plan to who to attack, and up until Abdullah bin Jahsh, there had been nothing brought back. So this was the context in which the Muslims were operating, and then now we're seeing the specific build-up to the Battle of Badr. Just before we go on to that, what is Badr? Where is Badr? Badr is actually a plain which is between Makkah and Medina. It's probably, I think, just to the southwest of Medina, and it's the main travel route for those who are traveling between Makkah and the north in Syria. They pass by Badr, so it's a well-known trading route. It was named after a chap called Badr, who was the one who discovered the water there, the well of Badr. And so you have the well of Badr, and then the plain around it took on his name as the plain of Badr. So this was obviously many years before, but it was a well-known place. It was a place where sometimes in the year people would go and they'd have a festival there, so it was a well-known staging point. So getting on to the actual incidents that leading up to the actual fighting, what we need to bear in mind are that there are three parallel stories or three parallel events that are happening. Firstly, there is the caravan of Abu Sufyan. Then there is the Muslim response to the caravan of Abu Sufyan, and then there is the Quraish response to the Prophet ﷺ going out to intercept the caravan. So there are three parallel stories that are going on, and obviously they overlap and coalesce at some point. But before that, just to talk about, there's the Dream of Aatiqa. Now, Aatiqa bint Abdul Muttalib. Now, she's the sister of Abdullah ibn Abi Talib. She's the aunt of the Prophet ﷺ. I mean, we all are aware, or should be aware, that Sufyan, one of the other aunts of the Prophet ﷺ, she became a Muslim, as did Abbas in the end, the Prophet's uncle, as did Hamza ibn Abdul Muttalib. But Aatiqa, we're not actually sure whether she actually converted to become a Muslim or not. There's not much written about her, and I'm sort of fairly confident that had she become a Muslim and taken more of a prominent role, it would be recorded, but we don't have that record in the books of Seerah. But anyway, Aatiqa, she sees a dream, and it's quite a important dream. It's quite a significant dream, and it's quite a scary dream, and she doesn't know what to do with it. So she calls her brother al-Abbass, and she explains the dream to him. She says, "Look, I'm really concerned about this dream. I don't know what it means, and can you give me some sort of counsel about it?" And so he goes, "Well, can you recount the dream?" So she tells Abbas the dream. So she says, "In my dream, that there is in 3 days a crier, someone who calls out. He will come to Makkah, and he will be riding fast on his camel, and then he first goes to the Kaaba, and then he cries out, 'Oh, you traitors, meet your death in 3 days from now.'" So she's saying in 3 days' time, this crier will come, and he will say, "In 3 days, you traitors will meet your death." Then, as dreams are, they sort of jump around a bit. Then from the Kaaba, he will be on top of the Kaaba, and he will say the same thing. And then he will find himself on the top of a mountain called Abu Qubais, which is one of the local sort of hills, and he will be saying the same thing, "Oh, you traitors, meet your death in 3 days from now." And then he will throw a stone or a rock, and it will roll down from the mountain, and as it reaches the bottom, it breaks up and it sort of shatters, and then fragments of each of those, that shattered rock, will hit every house in Makkah. So from that exploded rock, fragments will strike every house in Makkah. So it's clearly saying something momentous is going to happen, and it's going to affect every house in Makkah. So she doesn't know what to make of it. So al-Abbass, he goes, calms her down to look at this is a really dangerous, serious dream. It can scare a lot of people. So don't tell anyone. We're probably going to get into trouble if people find out this, so keep it to yourself, okay? And then he's a bit perplexed by it, doesn't know what to do, so he goes to tell his best friend. So he tells Aatiqa not to tell anyone, but he goes and tells al-Walid ibn Utbah. So he tells al-Walid the dream as recounted, and he says to al-Walid, "Don't tell anyone." And then he goes to sleep, and then al-Walid, he's obviously quite disturbed by this, so he goes tells his father, Utbah. And so Utbah, he's quite disturbed as well, and then it's sort of, it's not Chinese whispers, it just spreads like wildfire. So all the top people of the Quraysh, they get to hear this dream. So there you have Abbas telling Aatiqa not to tell anyone, but he himself can't take his own counsel, and he tells the next one, tells him not to tell anyone. So, but there you go, everyone finds out. And then what happens is the next day, or later on, al-Abbass, he's walking by, and Abu Jahl calls him over. And then Abbas doesn't know what's happening, and he goes, Abu Jahl, obviously he's not from Banu Hashim, he's from Makhzum, and Abu Jahl, he turns to Abbas and he goes, are you people not satisfied that your men are prophets, that now your women are also becoming prophets? And again, this concept of prophethood is very new to the Arabs. And then obviously the Prophet ﷺ, being from Banu Hashim, he's claiming to be a prophet, and now he's saying, look, you've already got someone claiming to be a prophet, who's Muhammad, and not satisfied that even your women are saying that they're prophets, they can see the future. So he goes, are you not satisfied that your men should play the prophets now that your women also think that they are prophets? And so Aatiqa, and he challenges Abbas. He goes, Aatiqa predicted that there will be war in 3 days. If 3 days pass and nothing happens, we will write you down as the greatest liars in all of Arabia, and we will pin that on the Kaaba. And this is an open and public humiliation of al-Abbass. And al-Abbass is quite shaken up by this, and so he was taken off guard. He says, I was taken off guard, so he just denied it all. But Abu Jahl, obviously, he's trying to take leadership from Banu Hashim over to his tribe, and he's trying to portray himself as the new standard bearer. So al-Abbass, he's sort of very shaken up by this, and he doesn't know what to do, and he goes back to bed. And then we hear that the next day, all the ladies of Banu Hashim, they're coming up to al-Abbass, and they're just having a right go at him. How dare you let Abu Jahl speak to you like this? But we'll come on to that later. So that's happened in Makkah. Aatiqa sees the dream, and it lays the ground for some nervousness amongst the Quraysh. And then separately, we talked before about Abu Sufyan and the caravan. So here you've got a caravan of about 1,000 camels, all laden with goods. And this is the main caravan, and it's carrying, some say, 50,000 dirhams. So a huge wealth. I mean, millions and millions of pounds if you were to convert it into modern currency. And it's lightly guarded, despite the fact that they were told that the Prophet ﷺ is out to get their caravans. This 1,000-strong caravan, which is one of the main caravans, only has about 40 guards. So the Ghazwa al-Seerah, the Prophet ﷺ, when he went out, as the caravan was heading north to Syria, Abu Sufyan manages to outflank the Prophet ﷺ. He gets news that there are people who are out there scouting, spies, trying to find evidence of the caravan. So he diverts, and he goes, and the Prophet ﷺ, he gets to where the caravan should be, and it's not there. The Prophet ﷺ then makes a treaty with some local people and goes back. But the Prophet ﷺ knows that obviously the caravan's gone north, it's going to do its business, it's going to head back south. So then he's sending out lots of, in secret, reconnaissance missions, people to see where the caravan is. Now the Prophet ﷺ doesn't know that Abu Sufyan was tipped off about him coming to get it. So Abu Sufyan's on high alert. Prophet doesn't know that, so he sends out Talha bin Ubaidullah and Sa'd bin Zayd north to try and find out information about the return journey of Abu Sufyan's caravan. So then these two scouts, they stayed in a place called al-Hawra for some days until they noticed Abu Sufyan's caravan. So they watched it pass it by, they're taking notes, they're making observations, how much wealth is there, how heavily guarded it is, etc., etc. So then the two men, they hurry back as fast as they can to Medina to meet the Prophet ﷺ. And they report. So when they enter the Prophet ﷺ's house, or his quarters, the Prophet ﷺ clears everyone, or there's no one there except for Anas bin Malik, who's just a little boy at the time. And then they say, look, 50,000 gold dinars, lightly guarded, only 40 men guarding it, and it's moving in such and such a place relatively close to Medina, and we should be able to intercept it. So Talha and Sa'd, they're telling Prophet ﷺ this. In the meantime, Abu Sufyan, he knows that he's going to, he's probably under surveillance, so he's sending out his own counter reconnaissance people, and he gets word that there have been a couple of people camped somewhere. So he goes, meets the Bedouin, and says, where are these two people that have been camped? So Bedouin takes him to the campsite where the two Muslims were, and then he's there, he's checking it out, he's rummaging around to see what evidence there is, and then again, being the sort of type of strategic person he is, he finds some camel dung, and so he gets it, he crumbles it, he examines it, and then he finds in the camel dung crushed date seed, and then he knows that he says, look, this is the camel feed of the people of Medina. They're the only ones who are going to feed their camels crushed date seeds. So then he knows for sure that the Muslims are out to get this caravan. So he's already on high alert. He's looking at, he's got this small fortune with him. So then he dispatches one of his fast riders called Damm Damm al-Ghafari. Now, Damm Damm, he's told specifically that he needs to go back. The two things that Abu Sufyan does first. Firstly, having known that the scouts are out there to intercept him, the most sensible thing is obviously to change route, which is the first thing he does. So he changes route. So rather than going the normal path from Syria down to Mecca, he heads due west. So he goes straight towards the sea, and then he'll take the route, sort of a less travelled route by the coast, and then double back once he's passed Medina, and then head back to Mecca. So going beyond the plain of Badr right to the coastal area. So that's the first thing. So again, trying to outflank the Prophet ﷺ and the Muslims. Then he sends his fastest rider, which is someone called Damm Damm al-Ghafari. So he explicit instructions to Damm Damm. He needs to go to Mecca, and he needs to create a panic, so much so that the Quraish, they come and they defend the caravan. So Damm Damm, he's dispatched, and he, sort of going hell for leather straight to Mecca. Then he reaches Mecca, and he reaches Makkah, and he creates a scene. As soon as he enters into Makkah, he creates a scene. He sort of rips his shirt. Some reports are that he cuts the nose off the front of the camel's bleeding, takes the saddle, turns it upside down, and he's really coming in, creating a heck of a scene. And he's shouting and screaming and saying, unless you do something, all your money will be destroyed. That the Prophet ﷺ is out and he is attacking the caravan, which is obviously a lie. He was not actually attacking the caravan at the time, but he's creating this scene, and that obviously riles up the people, and this is all their wealth. Now this scene that Damm Damm created, everyone's out in Makkah seeing what's going on. This is actually on the third day after Aatiqa's dream. So al-Abbass has been criticised by the menfolk and the womenfolk, saying, you're not even a man to stand up for your women. And he's hearing this, and he's explaining to his tribe that, look, I never had a problem with Abu Jahal before, so that's why I didn't sort of confront him. But now on the morning of the third day, I will go and I will confront him. So then he wakes up the next morning, still all the gossip around, and everyone knows this is the third morning, so everyone is tense. And he goes about his business, goes to do tawaf, and then, as was custom, he then wanted to go see Abu Jahl. So then he's on his way to see Abu Jahl, and then he sees Abu Jahl, and he says, sorry, he wanted to go and confront Abu Jahl. So then Abu Jahl sees him, turns pale, and runs off. And al-Abbass doesn't know why is that, because he was there, he's going to confront him, and this was because the Damm Damm was crying out that, oh, you people, defend your caravan. So, oh, Quraish, your caravan, your property, your money is being attacked by Muhammad right now, and you need to defend it immediately. And so this obviously gets the Quraysh really anxious. So Abbas, can't defend the accusation of his not being able to defend the Quraysh, so Banu Hashim, sorry. So so this whole panic is being created in the center of Makkah. So the Quraysh, they then, in the backdrop of this, have a council, war council. Well, what's got to be done? We need to do something about this. And you've got Damm Damm, who's basically saying our money, our wealth is being plundered by the Muslims. We need to act now. So there wasn't much of a decision. They all unanimously decided that obviously we have to go and protect the caravan. And every single family in Makkah had invested in the caravan. So every single family had a stake in it, and every single family then sent representatives to go in the army, because they, and this was a fulfillment of Aatiqa's prediction that the shrapnel from the explosion would affect every house. Okay, so we'll go over how some of the individuals then themselves didn't want to fight, but in the meantime, that's going on in Makkah. So Abu Sufyan, he's rerouted. He sent Damm Damm down to Makkah. In Makkah, they're now panicking, and they're making full-scale preparations for war. They're there to defend their honor, they're there to defend the caravan, their money, their wealth, and knowing that it's Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they want to, have a proper confrontation. And again, they're not aware of the size and the strength of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam's army or his entourage. So they're making full preparations, full armor, full weaponry with all the main leaders. Now, in the meantime, going back to Medina, we find that the Prophet ﷺ, he gets word, as we said, that these two from his two scouts, that the caravan is lightly guarded. So he's not aware that the Quraysh are going to send an army. He thinks he's going to be able to intercept the caravan, and because they missed it last time, they need to act with a sense of urgency. So the Prophet ﷺ, he basically says, we're leaving right now. He's going to the mosque and says, whoever has their camel with him, you need to come right now. We need to go. We need to move this instant. And there was some of the Sahabi who said, well, we can't come right now because our camel, our rides are on the other side of Medina. So we need to go back to our house, we need to saddle up, we need to get the things, and it might take a bit of time. So the Prophet he doesn't give them any chance. He says, no, you need to be ready, you need to be with me, you need to be right now. We are leaving straight away. So then the Prophet he leaves straight away. And again, it's those people who are around him, who are ready, who are prepared, who spend their time with him, are ready, and they answer the call straight away. So they are obviously at a slightly higher level when we talk about the grading of the Sahabi. So it's the Muslim army made up of about 310 plus a few. And we'll get back to its significance. 310 plus a few, made of about 82 to 86 Muhajir, about 61 from the Aus, and 170 from the Khazraj. And again, the Khazraj are greater in number in terms of their number in Medina. They're the lower socio-economic people compared to the Aus, the poorer people. And the Aus are slightly richer, more wealthy, and they've got more of the armaments and weaponry. But there are fewer Aus because the Aus live on the other side of Medina, on the outskirts of Medina, where they were. So they couldn't go back and get there. They weren't able to be so ready. So then you've got these 315 or so, there or thereabouts, plus or minus 4 or 5, lightly equipped people. There's only 2 horses between them, and they belong to al-Zubair bin al-Awam and al-Miqdad bin al-Aswad al-Qindi. 70 camels between 300 plus. So they were 3 to a camel sharing, more than that, so they're having to take turns. And Prophet himself, he's sharing his camel with Ali ibn Abi Talib and Murtad bin Abi Murtad, and he then leaves. As he's leaving for the expedition, he puts Ibn Maktoum as his representative to take charge of the affairs of Medina. And later it's said that Abu Lubaba bin Abdul Munzir, he was the one who then took charge. But initially it was Ibn Maktoum, who was the blind person that Prophet ﷺ talked about this before. When he was giving dawah, he shooed away, and Allah mildly reprimanded the Prophet ﷺ for that. But it was a great honor for him, to be put in charge of Medina. Again, somebody who's less than able-bodied in that position of respect and honor. So the Prophet ﷺ, he gallops out straight away, with all the people that are these 315 or so people accompanying him, the Muhajir and the Ansar. And it's said that he's in charge of the whole army, but the general leadership he'd given to Musab ibn Umair, the Quraishi, and he had the Prophet standard, and that was, as we've talked before, a white cloth, bead shaped. So the standard of the Prophet, it was given to Musab ibn Umair, and again that was a great honor for Musab ibn Umair. Then the army was divided into 2 battalions. The Muhajir, their standard, the battalion standard was carried by Ali ibn Abi Talib, and the Ansar, their standard was given to Sa'ad ibn Mu'adh. And in addition to them having the standards, there were leaders of the different flanks. So Zubair ibn al-Awwam, he was appointed the leader of the right flank, and al-Miqdad bin Amr was given leadership of the left flank, and the rear of the army was given to the command of Qais bin Abi Sa'sa. Again, so they're all under the leadership of the Prophet ﷺ, and the Prophet ﷺ, he sort of marches out as quick as he can. So they're going out quickly. They're lightly equipped because they've been told that the caravan is only guarded by 40 people. 1,000 camels guarded by 40 people. So they don't need a big army. They don't need lots of weaponry, because as soon as they show up with 200-300 people, the 40 guards, even if they put up a strong fight, they're not going to be able to defend the whole caravan. So it's likely that they will disperse to save their own lives, and this will be a quick win for the Muslims. It was, a huge, potentially huge booty, but they'll get it with minimum fighting, probably. So that's the process is thinking, and he needs to act quickly. He needs to intervene quickly because they missed the caravan last time. So they're going quickly, and the Prophet he's sharing the camel with his 2 companions, and they're getting embarrassed because they're taking turns, and so they turn to the Prophet and say, look, we're willing to give up our turn so you can ride the camel. And the Prophet in a very sort of clever way, he doesn't take them up on that offer, but B, he replies in a really beautiful way, and he says, look, neither of you two, he doesn't say, look, let's share it and let's make it equal because of being equity is better. He said, look, neither of you are any sort of stronger than me or younger than me, although Ali was obviously, but he meant to sort of have that youthfulness about him. I'm not that old, so neither of you are younger and stronger than me, and I'm not in any less need of the barakah or the ajr than either of you. So you're doing this so you can get barakah and ajr and reward from Allah. I'm also in need. I'm also a human. I'm also part of that struggle. So I need it as much as you do. So again, it's a beautiful way of turning the concept or giving good advice to different people. You're painting it in a really positive way, and it can't be argued against. And so obviously they have to agree to sharing the ride. And again, it's a really positive and powerful way that the rest of the army can see the process. He's not giving himself special treatment. He's one of as doing the same as everyone else, and again, it's a great motivator for everyone else. That's look at the process. He's doing it. He's not getting tired, and it gets everyone else. Makes them feel more positive. And again, we came across a similar thing when Umar ibn al-Khattab, when he's been asked to take the keys of Jerusalem or Quds, he's sharing a ride with his servant, at the time, and as they're entering the precincts of the Holy Land, it was the turn of his servant to ride, and he was the one who was on foot. But again, it just shows the mindset of the Muslims of the day. So then the Prophet having said to the people, when he sort of said we need to move right now, and that was probably in the mosque, and they all left. Now that they're out and they've got their cohort of people, then he's able to explain to them what they're doing and where they're going, and then they set up their first camp, and then he has a chance to look at who's with him, because they've rushed out. So he's there, and he sees actually there were a couple of people who were too young, including the son of Umar ibn al-Khattab, Abdullah ibn Umar. He's under 14. So the Prophet says to these two, look, you're too young. I'm sorry, you have to go back. We can't take you at this age. And they were obviously very disappointed, but they were still close enough to Medina to be able to head back. And the other person who is missing amongst the group is Uthman. So Uthman, he was asked by the Prophet to stay back because the Prophet's daughter Ruqayya was ill. So that's one of the reasons why that Uthman couldn't join. Obviously, if he would always be in the Prophet's entourage, and he would be one of the first ones to join him. But the Prophet specifically asked him to stay back and look after his daughter. And just talking again about this sort of 315-ish number, there or thereabouts. Again, we've come across this before on a couple of occasions. One is in the Hadith of Prophet where he's asked how many prophets there are and how many messengers there are. So there are, since the start of mankind, there have been 124,000 prophets, and we talked about that when the Prophet was doing Al-Isra wal Miraj. They were all there in a line behind Prophet in Jerusalem. So 124,000 prophets and 313 messengers. And again, 315 or thereabouts is the number of Muslims who were fighting against Goliath. So the army of Talut, which included Dawood, these were the best of Bani Israel, and they numbered 310 plus some. So again, for some reason, there seems to be this number around sort of 310, 15 or so. So the Prophet, he then sort of examines the people, and again, they're now made aware we're here to intercept the caravan. So he doesn't know that an army is about to be dispatched. So they're there, they're ready to intercept the caravan. So now, going back to Makkah, we find that the council has happened, and they've all agreed unanimously. I mean, there's no question they have to go out and defend their wealth, their caravan. I mean, these are a nation, a tribe of trade. They don't have dates. They don't sort of manufacture anything. They purely exist on the trade, from the north to the south. This is their lifeblood, and this is one of the reasons why the Prophet was trying to turn the screw on them by targeting their caravans, their economic routes in all directions. So they had to go out and defend the tribe, their caravan. So Abu Sufyan, he's head of the tribe, their caravan, and he's rerouted. So we find that all of the leaders, they need to demonstrate, all the leaders of Quraysh, that they are in this together. But many of them have their own doubts. So Abu Lahab, he is the chief of Banu Hashim, and we talked about how before, when Abu Talib passed away, he took over leadership of Banu Hashim, and Abu Lahab initially gave protection to the Prophet ﷺ until Abu Jahl wound him up and said, ask him what he thinks of your father. So Abu Lahab, he was probably a bit conflicted because as tribal leader, it doesn't look good. The optics aren't great if he's there fighting his own tribe, Banu Hashim, and the Prophet ﷺ. So he was quite reticent to personally go. So he hangs back, and we'll talk about his fate later on. But in his stead, and he makes this publicly known, he goes to someone who owed him some money. A chap owed him money. Al-Asr bin Wa'il owed him 4,000 dirhams. So Abu Lahab goes to him and says, you need to go and fight in my place. If you go, I'll cancel the debt. I'll forgive this loan, wipe it off, and our slate is clean. So Al-Asr, it's a lot of money, he agrees to go on behalf of Abu Lahab. So Abu Lahab, he hangs back, so he doesn't go. But we'll talk about his fate at the end of Badr when news comes of the victory or the defeat of the Quraysh, what happens to him. Then sort of some of the other leaders, they're having second thoughts about it. The worst of the worst of the Quraysh, Abu Jahl, he's going, there's no question about it. He is the leader of these people. He has to be there, and he's giving himself authority. He's already cussed al-Abbass, and he's trying to take all leadership in the Quraysh for himself. So he sees himself as the spearhead, the figurehead of the army. The next person who is most vicious against the Muslims, against Prophet ﷺ, and we've talked about him before, is Uqba ibn Abu Mu'ayt. Now, he didn't want to go for a number of reasons, but just to sort of go back, Uqba, he was a really vile enemy of the Prophet ﷺ. He was the one who, when the Prophet ﷺ was praying, he snuck up behind him, grabbed the Prophet ﷺ's shirt, and tried to strangle him to death. Just out of his own sort of malice and anger, and the Prophet ﷺ was choking, and his face was turning red, and Abu Bakr had to rush and grab the Prophet ﷺ and get Uqba away from the Prophet ﷺ, and then people pounced on Abu Bakr because he was there protecting the Prophet ﷺ. And you say, look, why are you trying to kill a man just because he says worship one God? And Uqba was also the one who was in the night of the council where they had agreed to assassinate the Prophet ﷺ, and he was the one that when Abu Jahl said, when the Prophet ﷺ was doing sajda once, Abu Jahl said, camels just been slaughtered in such and such a place. Is there anyone who's going to bring the innards of the camel and dump them on the Prophet ﷺ? And he was the first one to get up, and even in his fine clothing, he went there, and got the innards of the camel's intestines, and he came and he dropped them on the Prophet ﷺ once he was in sajda. The Prophet ﷺ stayed in sajda, and he couldn't get up because he was laden with all this disgusting, smelly, dirty, bloody things. And then Fatima, she, as a young girl, she came and she took it off him, and then that's when the Prophet made a dua to Allah to curse these people. And also Uqba was one of those who once invited the Prophet to, it's recorded in Hadith, they once invited the Prophet sarcastically to a meal, and the Prophet knew that, look, there's no good in this, there's no good intentions, and he goes, I will not eat with you until you testify. He didn't reject it, so until you testify that I am the messenger of Allah. that got Uqba really riled and frustrated, well, not frustrated, angry. And so in his anger, he spat in the face of the Prophet ﷺ. And then the Prophet ﷺ, he just calmly wiped off the spit from his face, and then he turned pointedly and looked at Uqba in the eyes and said, "Oh Uqba, when I meet you outside Mecca, you will be killed whilst you are tied up." Now Uqba, despite being the enemy of Allah, despite being against the Muslims and the Prophet ﷺ, he knew that the promise of the Prophet ﷺ was going to be true. The Prophet ﷺ had predicted that he is going to kill, Uqba is going to die outside Makkah. So Uqba, he's sweating now. He knows that this is probably what the Prophet ﷺ was predicting. So he's trying to get out of this. So he doesn't want to go to begin with. Then he makes excuses not to go, and then he gets wound up by Abu Jahal saying, "Look, you have to go. Why are you saying you're not going to go?" So Uqba, then he sort of tries to not find a way, and then he's told that he basically has to go. So then he goes, "Look," he says to his wife, "Muhammad's promised to kill me. I can't go." But then one of his family members says, "Look, don't worry. Get a fast camel, and then even if your army flees, just get on your camel and go as quick as you can." And then I think he asks his wife to buy him a really fast camel, so Uqba, it's said that his camel, when the rout at Badr happened, his was the first to flee. But even though he knew that the word of the Prophet ﷺ is true, he still didn't believe in him. And again, there's lots of lessons there. And he kept saying that I'm going to turn back. I'm not going to actually fight. But again, he was one of those who gets killed. I mean, there are other stories, not just of Uqba, and we talked about another person, Utbah ibn Rabi'a. We'll briefly talk about, and then we'll finish there because there are some other stories, and it's obviously getting quite late. Or actually, we'll talk about Umayyah and Utbah next time, inshallah. But the story of Utbah's, again, quite sad in some respects, because Utbah ibn Rabi'a, he was a very sensible chap. He was a very respected person, a very noble person. He's the one who gave Prophet ﷺ some some grapes when the Prophet ﷺ was chased outside of Taif. Told his slave to give the Prophet some dates, and talked about how about the slave started kissing the Prophet ﷺ's feet, and that was Utbah ibn Rabi'a. And him and his brother were arguing with each other, should we go or not? And he didn't want to go, and even when they got to Badr, he didn't want to fight. Utbah was the one who's trying to tell people, let's not fight. But then Abu Jahl wound him up, wound his pride up so much that he was the one, him and his brother Shayba, were the first ones who then volunteered for the Mubaraza, the duel. Utbah was the one that the Prophet ﷺ talked about. Look, if there was any sense in the people, they would listen to the person on the red camel. And that was Utbah telling the people, let's not fight. You're killing your own people here. There's no sense in this war. But we'll talk about Utbah, Umayyah, and some of these other people who were promised death by the Prophet ﷺ, next time, inshallah. Just to finish on a hadith which we'll revisit next time. It's narrated by Abdullah ibn Masud that when the Prophet ﷺ was praying, and we've talked about this before, when the Prophet ﷺ was praying besides the Kaaba, there were some in the Quraish who were sitting in the gathering in their council, and one of them said, don't you see this? Who amongst you can go and bring the dung, the blood, and the abdominal contents, the intestines of the slaughtered camels of this so-and-so family, and then wait till he prostrates, because prostration was something that only the Muslims did. Wait till he prostrates and then dump it on his shoulders, and then the most evil of them, Uqba ibn Abu Mu'ayt, he went in his fine clothes and robes, brought that stuff back and waited till the Prophet was in sajda, and then he put the things on his back between his shoulders. The Prophet remained in that prostration, and then everyone else was keeling over, laughing at the Prophet, and they were falling over, literally rolling around the floor, laughing. And then a passerby, he went and he told Fatima, who was a young girl in those days, and this is all the narration of Abdullah ibn Masud, and she came running out to the Prophet while she was still in prostration. She was crying. She removed all of them and started cursing the Quraysh. And when the Prophet completed his prayer, waited till he completed his prayer, he stood up and he said, "Oh Allah, take revenge on the Quraysh." And then he said it again, "Oh Allah, take revenge on the Quraysh." And then he said it again, "Oh Allah, take revenge on the Quraysh." And then he named them in person, "Oh Allah, take revenge on Amr bin Hisham, Abu Jahl. Take revenge on Utbah ibn Rabi'ah, on Shayba ibn Rabi'ah, on al-Walid bin Utbah, on Umayyah bin Khalaf, on Uqba bin Abu Mu'ayt, and on Umar bin al-Walid." And then the end of the hadith is, Abdullah says, "By Allah, I saw all of them dead on the battlefield on the day of Badr, and they were dragged and they were thrown in the Qilab, the well at Badr." And Allah's apostles then said, "Allah's curse has descended upon the people of the well." And that's obviously the prophecy that's come true. But inshallah, we'll talk more about how the Quraysh took the army out, and then how they tried to fight amongst themselves, or they disagreed amongst themselves in terms of what to do, heading out to Badr, getting to Badr, and how the Prophet was unsure of what to do when they got to Badr, because it was clear then that it wasn't the caravan, it was an army that they were facing. So all of those things, inshallah, next time we'll talk about how they sort of coalesce. Until then, again, if you have any questions or comments, do email, do send them in, WhatsApp, or whatever. And inshallah, next time we'll talk about just before the main Battle of Badr, or may even start the actual fighting on the Battle of Badr. So do remember, as in your du'as, it's getting towards the end of Maghrib, the start of Isha soon. So I'll finish there. So Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr innal insana lafi khusr illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihati wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Jazakallahu khairan.